If you are, as you're hopping on, just go ahead and say hi in the chat so we can see that you're here. Um, just give us a little wave. Feel free to ask questions along the way. Definitely participate. And if you want to participate and actually show your face, let James know and he can pull you in. But otherwise, he can kind of just make sure we're seeing your questions and able to respond to you guys. But anyway, let's go ahead and hop in. There might be a couple more people who pop onto the screen here as we're going. But today we are super excited to be exploring how Jauntboards can really impact how agencies are run, how they grow, how they become more valuable, especially if you're looking to build something that you can sell someday. So Jauntboards is definitely like a labor of love from a lot of us who come from the agency space. And so one of the biggest things that we're looking forward today is obviously showing you guys this tool within that context, but just getting your reaction to it. What questions do you have? What features would be really cool? What hesitations would you have about actually implementing it in your own agency? So like Kevin, I'll put you on the spot because you've been a big fan of what we're building, but you haven't migrated yet. You know, you're too busy, your tech stack's too big. So, just any kind of dialogue that would help us understand your guys' problems better, as well as what this tool needs to evolve to be able to do to really shift the needle. Fletcher, anything else that you would add before
No,
we?
I love that. And I think it'd be cool to even talk through like the requirements you feel like you have to become an agency or being an agency. And a lot of people put like having a website on that list. And I don't know, there's like a lot of like tasks we assume is required, but it'd be cool to even hear an open forum on like which one of those paid out in the long run. You know, I know we've
Yeah.
done this before, but like websites don't drive a lot of new work. Actually, I mean, they're fun and they're cool for like a pride's sake, and it's nice to tell your parents that you have a cool website. But other than that, they don't do a ton of heavy lifting for us, and that's a lot of hours that are used that could be converted to a different tool like Jauntboards that actually helps you sell, do the work, and then build momentum for an agency.
Yeah. Well, maybe it could be fun just to have a very quick, casual conversation about how would we even define what an agency is in today's world?
Yeah.
Um, right. Because I think even looking at the people on this call, it seems like we have experience collectively working for like big global agencies. Everyone on this call has been a part of building their own or helping someone build an agency. So I don't know, Kevin, I kind of want to put you on the spot a little bit. Like let's hear your point of view on what an agency is, even in this modern era.
Sure. Let me pull out my thesaurus here and see what I can come up with. So, an agency, as I would define it, is a business that is running to help another brand market itself, and that has a lot of different configurations. There are a lot of companies that specialize in one specific area. There's agencies that are, we do business to business websites, and that is what we are focused on, and we create that one thing. And then there are companies that are a little bit more generalist, where they focus on branding and content and other marketing specialties. And you can have that from a very strict hierarchy of, we are a large model and we have global chief creative officers and we have creative directors and art directors and a series of artists and account managers. And what we're seeing now is people who have come from that background or come from backgrounds of being part of in-house teams starting a different kind of agency where they are less hierarchical, they are less focused on ongoing retainer needs, and they are more focused on helping businesses solve their problems in a more agile and nimble process. So you'll have agencies that are similar to Jumpsuit or similar to my agency, which are a series of independent contractors that are very, very specialized in what they do and know how to deliver business value and have a different way of working because we have a network of other talented individuals that come together that are less, you know, focused on a we are an agency where everything is in-house and we all have all of these people working 9 to 5 and have more of a network of people that are like a heist where you have your explosives guy and you have your confidence expert. You bring the right experts together to get the job done.
Yeah. And at what point does it become true that you are an actual agency versus a freelancer branding yourself at an agency? I feel like that's creating a really interesting dilemma in the marketplace.
And I think that's like how you brand yourself, honestly. Like, what is that difference? It's when you call yourself an agency,
Mhm.
right? I think that there is kind of over the past few years, we've seen a number of people transition from I'm a freelancer to I'm a solopreneur to I'm a business owner. That language has kind of been interchangeable.
Mhm.
And really, it's been about how do you brand yourself? Like, am I an agency owner? Am I a solopreneur? Like, I could come up with a couple of different terminologies for what it is that I'm making. And so all of these things are really the thing that's important is what value are you delivering to your clients? What service offering are you building? And uh, the terminology can kind of serve you poorly if you're just focused on like I'm trying to communicate it. It's really more of a brand thing than it is what the actual value of what you do is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, I'm seeing people are writing some responses in the comments. Like, I'm curious, like, what do you consider an agency versus not an agency? I think that's a really interesting question to answer together. Fletcher, were you going to say something?
No, I love it. I mean, I think Kevin hitting on the head. It's almost like an attitude when you go to register for taxes. Like, do you put your name LLC? Because that's a freelancer. But that obviously can transition into like, oh no, that's actually an agency, where you just have your name versus like you think. And Nicole, I think it's so interesting because you registered, as jumpsuit or whatever, and so that just puts you in a different like mindset where it's about building a team and stuff like that. But it's really the same fundamentals. It's the same foundation for both, which is I agree.
Mhm.
Nicole, I know you offered to let people come up onto the stage. May I make a personal request that task mower is not allowed? James, just let's not allow that to happen, please. Thank you.
I love your little dynamic. Yeah, but I mean, I think when I put on my client hat, right? I mean, like maybe I'm purchases for a big like enterprise company, and you have all these initiatives to get other types of agencies into your enterprise to be able to solve new problems and maybe be more agile than like the big global agency you're working for, because it's becoming increasingly difficult for brands to know who is an agency, who's not an agency, who can actually deliver the value that they're promising, and who's just trying to get their foot in the door. So I think I'm excited to explore that level of transparency that I think is needed to build trust to be able to accomplish the jobs that like bigger brands are looking for. Yeah, Josiah, I'm curious if you have anything to contribute. You're an interesting guy on this call because you've been a freelancer. You have had your own small boutique agency as a founder. You've worked with Jumpsuit. You've also worked for a really big agency out in New York. I don't know, any kind of perspective on the small versus the big?
Yeah, I mean, I have personally decided that I prefer the small, more lean agency just because I'm much more of a generalist and I have mad ADD. And with the large corporations, they are very successful at getting specialists and having everyone stay in their lane. And there's a lot of people who really thrive in that environment. I personally am like, I need to have my hands in so many different pots to keep my mind, happy and well. But yeah, it has been interesting as I built an agency and then went to a large agency and now I'm back in freelance and I've been trying to figure out how do I brand myself? Am I a freelancer am I building an agency? So I'm kind of on that journey as we speak. So this is a great call. Like, what is the definition? I don't know. I think it is totally how you brand yourself. And then I see in the comments, having a team to delegate to. I'm very, very uncomfortable with saying things that I'm not. So right now, I don't feel comfortable branding myself as an agency. But as soon as I think I have like um, people that I can pull in, I think I would feel more comfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you have a team behind you and a system and a structure that can support taking on a bigger project or a bigger client? I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think most freelancers are at some point collaborating with another 1099, but not necessarily calling themselves an agency. So it's really like, I think it is making a commitment. Like, I'm building a brand that's bigger than myself. I'm building a team. I'm building a system, a structure to enable growth. That might be the marker there. To be determined. It's an interesting landscape for sure. Project manager. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Starting to pull in those people as well. You got it. All right. Well, Fletcher, if you want to tee up where you'd like to head today, I think let's get into the tool, because that's going to provoke some really interesting conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's I'm gonna start sharing my screen here. So something Nicole and I talked about, even with the invite on this one, is that like agencies really are worth their merit. I mean, you could probably judge it a bunch of different ways, but they're collaborative, and I think that's a good marker of a good agency. They collaborate well. They're fast and agile. I think that's another like grade, way that we grade agencies on the scale, like how fast and agile they're able to work, and transparency. Those are all sort of things that we called out that are really important, especially in today's market when there is a flood of freelancers or agencies to be determined hitting the market. We understand more and more that like being able to differentiate yourself well and kind of stand above those other people is super important when you're trying to win work. And the categories we thought was like so critical today specifically is, that you can collaborate well, you're fast and agile, and you're transparent. So anyway, that's just something I wanted to throw out while we're walking through the tool, and just kind of we'll take pauses and talk through like how this helps achieve, a certain I guess, edge on those different categories. So for those of you who don't know, this product's called Jauntboards, and it is a tool to help you document, democratize your processes so that you can win work and scale your company, and even all the way to the end, be able to exit for more when you try to leave or sell the company off. So we're looking right now at Jumpsuit's Jauntboard. So this is the public view of Jumpsuit. So anyone can go here. It's just jauntboards.app/jumpsuit if you want to follow along yourself. And this is really awesome. And Kevin, to your point too, this is where people can see what your services that you offer are, right? They can almost browse it a la carte, like you're going to a restaurant, and you're just sort of able to quickly see and get a sense for the different services that, in this case, Jumpsuit offers. You can see they have different categories: branding, experience design, strategy, creative, production, media, marketing, and ops. These are also incredible, by the way. Please go take a look. These are really well thought through processes that Jumpsuit's actually currently using to win and grow their team. And so each of these items can actually be clicked into. So this brand guidelines, you can click into it. Again, the client can kind of view this. They get a sense for some of the work you've done in the past. You can upload videos and different work you've done, and then they get a sense of the actual work that's going to be done. This is so different than today's typical sales cycle, where you just sort of vaguely promise, that you can get the job done with like maybe a nice demo reel. But this actually goes a step deeper, and it begins to actually unpack and show what exactly the process is that you use to get to the end. I love this because it's the way that you would choose a Sherpa if you're going to climb a mountain. Like the person that just says, yeah, I've been to the top 1,000 times versus the person that says, yeah, I've been to the top 1,000 times, and this is exactly how I do it. This is when I turn left, when other people turn right. It builds trust with a client when you actually expose transparently what your process is. And it actually does a lot more than that. We've realized this also allows you to upsell. It allows you people to understand the breadth and width of the people and team you're going to bring in to get this job done. And it really sinks your teeth in to a trusting relationship that you build with that client as you move forward. I'll pause there. Nicole, any other thoughts on just this when you're browsing from a public view?
Yeah, I think a couple of things I would add is when a client is putting out an RFP and maybe they're talking to 3 to 5 other agencies to accomplish, the job. Something like this can be really helpful because they can see, oh, okay, this company starts with story first before they do the visual identity. That seems really important to us culturally too. So some of those, I think just core alignments can help close deals because you're providing that level of transparency into your process and your philosophy of how work gets done. So that's one advantage that I've seen in the sales process as we've been alpha testing this tool over the past 6 months with our own clients. The other thing I'd say is when you're an agency founder, Kevin, you're probably the one selling all of your stuff right now. Like you don't have a sales guy yet. Not yet. No sales team yet. It's you. So, you've got your own system style. You can speak to the work. You can speak to the process because you have been doing it all, right? At some point, when you graduate, level up, your team grows, whatever you want to call it, it becomes critical to pull in more people who can have conversations with clients. And that is a really hard transition. I went through that myself. I was very confident in my ability to sell and less confident in my ability for other people to be able to sell, but it was necessary for me to focus on growing the business in other ways. So when I grew Jumpsuit to the place where we had a biz dev team, it became really tricky because a good salesperson, can go track down a lead, get someone excited for a conversation and do a little bit of, discovery and consulting. But they might not be the person who has actually done this process end to end, especially when you're more of a generalist agency and you do a lot of things versus maybe like video over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So that became tricky. It's like, for me, it was like, how do I get my salespeople equipped to be able to have a more in-depth conversation, to build the same level of trust that I've been able to do? This tool really helps solve that problem. And as a matter of fact, because we can build out those processes for the sales team, we can make sure they're thinking about not like just closing this video, but like what goes before a video? Does the client need, messaging strategy? What comes after the video? Do they need, ads bought behind the video? That's just one example. But we're able to actually equip the salesperson with a more 360 holistic agency type of mindset in the sales process, which we have seen turn $40,000 conversations into $120,000 deals, right?
Yeah, I love that, Nicole. And I just to add, I've been a part of probably 6 different agencies, and I know one in particular. They were growing their sales team, and it was funny because every time a new salesperson came, I'd always see an hour or 2-hour meeting blocked on my calendars because they wanted to onboard and understand what services I offered. So I'd go through this like 2-hour long conversation with this new salesperson. I describe, in this case, actually, this digital product design would be one I would typically walk through. I talk about how I went about doing it, like some of the nuance of how I work first on these core screens and where those come from, and then how I do a design system and build that out. And I could just tell, this poor new salesperson just would glaze over, but it was so critical because if they're going to sell this service in the future, they need to set expectations right off the bat because it's a very in-depth process. And then, 10 times out of 10 without this product, this is way in the past, but they'd go and close deals. And when I, get on the project to start doing the work, I'd look at the SOW and massive phases were omitted because they just didn't remember, they couldn't, they didn't quite understand what the process was. And so what I love about, documenting these up front is it lets anybody become wear the t-shirt and actually showcase exactly what it's going to take to get that work done.
Without fully having to understand the weeds.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So people understand. There's also, just before we kind of jump over to the team side, We also have these calls to action at the bottom of each one. They're customizable. So in this case, if a client is kind of browsing on their own, you can kind of customize how you want to create flow, how you want them to reach out to you or book a one-on-one. We have this actually working through Calendly, and in some cases, they actually, you can charge them for the hour consultation or do it for free. But this is totally a customizable way to allow a potential buyer to take a look at your process, kind of understand your full breadth of services you offer, and then contact you and actually move that forward. Actually, also before we jump, I want to talk about gating content too, because it's really nice to view it on this side. You can see some of these don't have this lock icon, some of them do. The ones that do are actually are deemed kind of content that's beyond just like a service, like you'd definitely reach out to Jumpsuit to do. But some of these are so well documented and have so many guides and documents for you to actually fill out yourself. So you can actually gate your products. We'll show you what the process is, but it allows other users to view it. They can't actually open up the milestones or even look at the actual files that you've uploaded, but they can unlock it either for an email or for any price that you put on there. And when they unlock it, they'll have full access to actually walk through that process themselves. So again, it's just another opportunity. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but it turns some of your really well-documented processes into potential passive income, because people can actually purchase those and do them themselves. But always with that CT at the bottom, where if they get stuck halfway through, they can always reach out and have you actually service them to the end.
Nice. All right. Well, let's take us into a proposal then.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to jump over to this tab. This is Jumpsuit's team page. So this is how we see it. This is how we actually put together everything you were looking at. So real quick, just lay of the land. These are your different boards. We have a draft section. So this is where you build and create. You can see a bunch of them that Jumpsuit's in the process of building out. Your team comes here. They all work together on building these out. And then when you're ready, you can move that board to one of your service offering sections. So we move it to experience design. This reflects what we just saw on the public view. And that's how you actually make them live, so people can view them on their own. And then you can see I have drafts, I have purchases. So this is any of the Jauntboards that we've purchased from other agencies. We have the different categories. So experience design is what we were looking at before. And then once someone actually bites, we're going to turn it into a proposal. So let's look how that's done. So let's go into, we'll go into this MVP branding, open that up. So you can see I have a bit of a different view. I have this little utility bar at the top where I can start a proposal, I can start a project. Just bear in mind, everywhere you see, you can also edit these phases and milestones. Are super easy to build and create and drag and drop and kind of rearrange. So you can go into kind of this edit viewer and rearrange things. I don't want to mess this one up because it's actually live, but basically this is where you can kind of create those changes, finish editing, and everything's also, any update you make is live, like instantly. Like if the client's viewing this and you change some language, they don't have to refresh. It just instantly is updated on their end. So let's go ahead and actually start a proposal. So let me set this up real quick. We're going to do a new, we'll do a new brand for Chase. So you put in your client logo and the project name. And okay, cool. So we've just taken that process and turned it into a proposal. So there's a new brand for Chase. There's a few things we can do now at this point. So one, we can further customize our process. So we like to think of this as like that first conversation, that M1 meeting with the client, where you're really talking through what the process is and they are interested, but they know things like, hey, the landscape analysis we already did, or we're going to provide for you. So you can actually go through and kind of live, we call it like a hibachi session, where they can actually see, you can update things, you can, add new steps that are going to be custom to them. And you can basically create a really good proposal for your client. You can also add a proposal deck. So this allows you to add any link to like a Google slide deck. And that way that voiceover track is live in the meeting when they go to share this with, their stakeholders or other people in their business, and you're not able to attend. This allows you to kind of have everything exactly how you want it to be presented with them in one single link.
And the one thing that I would add here is there are a lot of times when a prospective client will reach out and request a proposal. Obviously, the goal is to move it to the scope of work and then win the work and then do the work. It is very important to get a client sitting down with you working on these details, because if they're not willing to do that, that might be an indicator that they're just reaching out to you to have an option B or C so they can go work with the agency that they want to work with already. They just needed to go through their own process and get some other bids. But if they're willing to sit down with you and collaborate on the scope of work, odds are you are more likely to win that work with that client and build a relationship and trust along the way. I think that's really, really important nuance and level of intuition that people who've been involved in sales conversations for agencies understand.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll also add just real quick, there is when these move into proposal, actually even on the draft, we have a level of permissions on these. So if you are working with a client that requires a certain amount of privacy, you can actually, have only people invited to this Jauntboard, invite just your clients to it, or you can have anyone with this link. That way it's open to anyone who, has this direct link, they can get to it. So we have a bunch of different privacy concerns when you do work with bigger clients that we are supporting in this flow as well. Just good to note that. Sweet. So that is when it's in its proposal state. Let's say that, things look good. Client wants to bite on this project. You just go through and actually start the project. And when you start the project, you're going to see a few things change. We're going to take out that proposal deck, and then we're going to have new statuses that we can kind of start to edit and manage while we're actually working on the product.
Yeah, while that's pulling up, what you'll see is that that proposal obviously is designed to mimic a scope of work, right? What Jauntboards does not do right now is actually create that scope of work. You'd still have to go fill that out in your document and get that signed. And once that's signed, then you can turn this into a project. That's definitely something that is on our radar. And I think it'd be really, obviously, it's really easy to integrate AI to make that happen. But I'm just curious for people watching, how important, how difficult is getting to a clear scope of work for you, actually filling it out, making sure you have the right things or the right assumptions. I'm just curious, any insights you're willing to share about how this tool could help you in your own SOW process. I would love to hear that. But in the meantime, we'll assume that Chase has signed that scope of work. We know exactly what they're doing and what we're doing, and therefore all of that is visible right here as we attempt to work through a project.
Yeah. One thing that Jauntboards does really well is this is about maintaining a 50,000 foot view of the work you're going into. I feel like a lot of project management tools fail in that they can never be client facing. In fact, you'd never wish it on your worst enemy. Someone once told us that, the Jiras and Asanas of the world basically show you how close to the edge you're getting. It's where you're talking about where it's failing, the last second things. This isn't so much about task management. This isn't about telling, one person at what date to get something done. This is about maintaining the promise you set out to make, right? You promised the client you were going to do this certain thing in this way. And this is for them to keep track and understand and maintain that level of trust, right? This is like if you are climbing up a mountain, but you feel lost, you pull out the map and your Sherpa says, no, we're right here. Just like we said, we're still on the dotted line and we're, at this turn and we're still heading up the mountain. So it's all about maintaining trust in a shareable and collaborative way with the client, right? So it makes it transparent. So again, this URL never changes since a proposal all the way actually to a case study. So the client can always go back and see exactly where you've been, where you're at now, where you're going, and where all their stuff is. So let's talk about where all your stuff is. So as you actually work through this project, you'll be able to add in new links here. So you'll add a thing. And when you add those links, they show up right here, on it collapse, or they can also open it and actually see and get access to that there. Let me change over to the public view. So this is what your client would see specifically. You can see there's no more drop down. They can just get in, they can open up the products and kind of see all of the different milestones as you hit those. On our side though, on the team side, you actually get some analytics baked in as well. So you can actually see interactions. You can see where the client's really interested, where they're kind of peeking into the different deliverables you're giving them. the reason this is really important, and this is something I started doing, every time I do a deliverable, I've actually put it through like a URL shortening platform, because I started getting really interested in, you know, what what are my clients actually looking at? Like I'm doing a lot of work, but are they actually like referring to this and using it? And when I started doing that and actually getting analytics on engagement on the deliverables I was heading out the door, I started being able to better customize my process on the most effective and most you know, desirable, I guess, milestone deliverables. So I realized, oh, you know, these user journeys, I'm making them super beautiful, but they're not really engaging with it. It's definitely helping a portion of my process get to the end, but I can kind of dial down the gloss on that one, on that deliverable. I can use it more, maybe more as a whiteboard. But then things like, you know, the wireframes or even the sitemap actually is a good example. That gets tons of traction. People are really interested in what that new structure looks like. It's used a lot with their engineering team to make sure that they have the setup proper when we go live with the site. And so again, just knowing at a high level how much are the clients engaging in this really helps you to define and kind of craft a better process. Awesome. So as we move through this, you know, we'd kind of keep going through. We'd make completed. You can have not started, in progress, completed, approved, client provided, block, skip, locked. This one's really good for those of you who've done maybe video editing and stuff where it's, you know, you're not able to go back and refilm something so easily. So it's nice to just make sure it's clear that something's locked. But I do want to actually mention for a second, I forgot to do it in the proposal, but if you have something in skip, when you come here, it maintains skipped. What I love about this, and this has happened already quite a few times with Jauntboards, is when it's in the proposal phase, the client expresses some financial or timeline constraints that have to make us, you know, kind of cut edges or cut corners. And in the past, you just say, okay, that's no problem. We're not going to do a manifesto. And you keep working. But then 2 months later, when the project's done and it maybe went off the rails or something was off, you have no proof of that conversation you had where the client specifically requested to shortcut what you say is the path to success. And so at the end, you're just sort of left bearing the entire you know, burden of like maybe why exactly it went off the rails. This is a nice passive way to not be like at that point like, well, you told us to, just to always keep it in front of the client's face that like, hey, some of these things you said you were going to provide, some of them, you know, you told us to skip entirely, and they can go back and remember this is the path to success if we did each of these in line. However, you know, you requested us to skip, and it keeps things from having scope creep or even falling off the rails later, or at least be able to have a paper trail of why they did.
Yeah, the other thing I want to add is like it never feels good to pull up an SOW mid-project because something's happened, right? So it's going to be a tough conversation. The client's either asking for something that's out of scope or you're trying to, you know, so it's just like always an awkward thing. With Jauntboards, your scope of work is in front of you the entire time, but it doesn't feel like an issue. It actually feels like a helpful guide. We've seen instances too where like a key stakeholder hops in. They weren't a part of the brief or scoping or anything. They're just kind of reviewing it. And they may say, hey, wait a second. Why did we skip SEO for this website? That seems really important. And the marketing manager, you know, may say, well, because the budget wasn't there. And they may say, well, actually, we should do that. I'll, you know, give you the budget. And then therefore you just want an incremental scope of work simply because they saw it was skipped.
I love that, Nicole. Yeah, it's like a passive way to upsell to new areas. Also keep in mind, yeah, it's a way to not bring up the SOW. It's just something right there for them to view. It's really powerful. And I would say, I mean, right now, actually in the trenches in some projects, this is life savings too much. You know, it's not saving my actual life, but it is such a breath of fresh air. And also recently I've been brought into a project midstream. Let's talk about that kind of use case, for instance. So I do, you know, the actual design of the website or the product, but I'm brought in like late in the game. Like I wasn't there when they were doing discovery or, you know, the story and visual identity phases. So I'm just supposed to pick up where they left off, right? So this is such a good example, and this happens all of the time. So I will come in and I will usually have to do some sort of onboarding where I just talk to the team internally and we talk about like where they were at. I'm confused with why they promised certain things and didn't offer other things, but you know, it's just about me getting onto the same page and being able to start running at the same pace they're already going. And a lot of times there's some unorganized files, like they've done a bunch of work already in the past and I don't have access to them, or they forgot about them. And this, I know we've actually already had this happen to one of our designers. They came in midstream. I've also done this, come in midstream, and I just get a Jauntboard link, and I can, at my own leisure, review exactly what's been done already. I can actually find out what discovery, what kind of SEO documents they did, all this stuff, so that when I move into my phase, I am fully equipped with all the knowledge of what's happened in the past. So I actually can stand on those shoulders. And that just doesn't happen today. I mean, unless I'm wrong, and I'd love to ask anyone who'd be willing to tell us, but that can't happen without a very good like project manager that can do that really good onboarding and give you links. There's no way to like just self-service and understand where it's been, dive into documents, and get fully on board.
And you're just talking about the past, right? How many times have we been a part of a project where we come and do the thing and we never know what happens? We never see the end result. Did that thing go live? Like, was it cool? I don't know what happened to it. So the ability to see the whole thing done, like a linear narrative, is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point, Nicole. I mean, I'll be on projects where there's a massive engineering, lift at the end of it that's even almost a year long. So I'll have done my work for them for the 6 months or whatever, the engagement there. And then there's no real way to like peek in and say like, where is it going? Or even off, like re-engage and like re-offer services of things I'm seeing are off the rails. But now with Jauntboards, I have this link in perpetuity. I can jump back into it and actually see where it's at, where it's going, and kind of review as it's being, created in front of me, which I think is awesome. And we'll talk about it in a bit, but that just adds such a more, a bigger like reach of case studies, like when you get to that phase. But like it makes everyone who's a part of the project excited to share it and follow along with it. I'll also just pause and say what I love about this phase is I've been on a lot of projects where 2-3 months in, we have to stop all work and build a deck that shows what we've done. I don't know how many of you have done that as well, but I do that all the time. You stop all the work. It takes about a week, and decks are the worst to build. And so you have this like horrible week where you're building a deck to show what you've done and where you're at and where you're still going. And so that they can share it with some like stakeholder or VP that hasn't been a part of all the meetings. And so you do all this work, you stop it, and then you get it out the door, and then you resume work. Well, this is that. You never have to stop. This link lets anyone, peek in at what's going on. You can have that VP who's curious, where's that $500,000 going? They can follow along with the Jauntboards. You can see it's an executive level like dashboard as far as what's going on and where that money's being spent and the deliverables being made so far. So anyway, that's already happened for us. It is so wonderful to not have to halt work, have the whole team stop to help, kind of spin on some deck to get everyone else on board. This lets people just do that organically. Awesome. So let's say that in this case, we got to the end of the project. All these got to the completed phase. All of them have our different links to the milestones. This becomes the proof of work. So now more and more, when you go to bill that final amount, they are looking at the SOW. What did you promise and what did you deliver? Do they match up? And if they do, here's your check. If they don't, we need to talk. So at the moment, that process without Jauntboards is usually a clumsy email or 2 or 3 or some paper trail you have to go follow and find all those assets. You have to then review, which is so embarrassing, but it's just true. We have to kind of review the SOW. Did we promise that? Oh, I forgot we need to do this or whatever. We need to make sure we have all those holes patched. This is building the proof of work as you work through the project, right? So this link is something you can send so that you can get that check cut faster. And it's organized and beautiful, and it's just so much easier.
Nice.
Awesome.
Let's turn it into a case study.
Yeah. So let's talk about case studies. So those of you who are an agency or whatever know the pain that is the case study. It's usually after 2 years of working and being like just running as fast as you can sort of pause for a minute to invest heavily, or you even like hit a lull where you're like, oh, we're not busy this month. Let's like invest a bunch in our case studies. And then you do a ton of work. You have to go back and find the documents and the assets that you provided and kind of sculpt it into the story. And at the end of the day, you're kind of half happy with them and they just live on this website, but they don't have any they don't get a ton of traction. Maybe portions of the images you built find their way into a deck later on. But other than that, it's just sort of another thing that all these calories we burn on building out our website, when really that website's not creating new customers for you. It's not actually generating any income, but it's funny that we do that anyway. But nonetheless, case studies are so critical that when people do them right, they are a powerful tool to actually build and create trust with new clients. And so we know that case studies kind of need to be reinvented. They need to be easier to build out. They need to be just part of a process. At the end of a project, they need to just almost self-build themselves. And so that's what Jauntboards is aiming to do. So here at the end, we can actually complete this project and create a case study. We'll see here load. It's going to bring back in that nice header. So now we can go in and we can actually add in a description to what this is. Let's actually just go to a live one real quick so you can see what that looks like. Go to this Wheatley vodka. So here we have this nice lockup jumpsuit doing work for Wheatley vodka. We have the final video at the top, a description of what the project exactly was. And then you can just see, again, this is the process we took to get there, all the deliverables along the way. In this case, this was slightly enhanced where we were able to like go back and kind of film or create like some nice material to actually kind of showcase that step. And another thing you can do is you can turn these from visible to hidden. So this on the public view, anything that's visible shows up here. So you can see this is how they're going to see this. And you can go through, and if there's something that's maybe proprietary, you don't want them to see the jingle or the film shoot, back on the back end, you can easily hide that, and then it disappears from their view right away. So it lets you kind of curate what exactly this should look like for them, and it lets you allow your whole team to get excited about sharing a case study.
And not just your team, right? Like the client, the best thing that can happen for you is if the client is selling you for you. Right. So obviously they can shop around the final video. In this case, the end deliverable was a video. They could show that around the company, but when they're showing this case study, your logo's there the entire time. You're seeing a process. Like there's just so many more touch points to get another person internally at that company curious about working with you too. So that is I just cannot underscore the importance of being able to give your client something they are excited to shop around that could win you more work.
I love that, Nicole. Yeah, this case study, we're realizing there's a lot of excitement around it because it's finally like almost a passive, like it's just like something that happens at the end of a project. And so we're actually already looking at ways to enhance these case studies where we actually would bring them back to the original board that it was, came from. So if you did a case study from this brand guideline process, you'd see the logos of the different people you've done, where you could link straight to that case study. But just a way to kind of enhance and use that as social proof to build that vehicle of trust with new clients. And something I'd add as well is on these case studies, you can see this is sort of the view for the public. There is a link at the top to go back to your services. So when those are shared, there's a way for them to go back and realize, oh, yeah, we hired them to just do brand guidelines, but I didn't realize they also do all these other things. And I don't know about you, but this has happened so many times where we're like, honestly, 2 years into a relationship with a client, or we've done videos for them a bunch. And then for some reason we have this conversation because they're building some like custom product. And we're like, yeah, we do that too. And like, oh, I didn't know that. In the 2 years I've known you, I didn't know you guys also did website design or digital product design or whatever it is. And that's kind of our fault, right? But how else to do that than this centralized place where any Jauntboard they're in, they can go back and see your services and how it fits into a bigger offering that you have.
Oh my gosh, that is huge. That is huge. The other thing I would add too is like as your team's growing and you're pulling in new collaborators, whether they're employees or 1099s or whatever, just to have a library of here's how we approach the work, just to really help people understand other people on your team. Here's what we do. Here's what that looks like. Here's an idea of the process, because even onboarding teams, it's like you're still kind of just showing them end deliverables. Here's an example website we did, or here's an example video we did. They're not really getting the full picture of what it's like to actually accomplish a job like this. So that I personally, as someone who diligently every week, I'm tracking our COGS, our expenses. I'm trying to figure out how much money are we spending to onboard people on projects. When you're a smaller company, you might not be paying attention to that, but those details impact your net income, right? And so for me to be able to have this system, knowing that I'm saving money all over the place across every single project because it's all in one place, that's incredible. Also, every time we go to make a new proposal or a new scope of work, I am shaving hours every single time. I cannot wait to look at 2024 and actually be able to be like a case study back to everyone to show how much impact that actually made on our bottom line. So that's just the thing I want to reinforce. It reinforces Jauntboards is designed to help you sell more in the beginning, throughout the course of a project, to impact your top line revenue. It's also designed to create massive amounts of efficiencies across the board to impact your bottom line. And I think just looking at 2024 and the economy and stuff, like this is going to be a really, really important tool for a lot of agencies.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if Josiah or Kevin or James, if you guys have any thoughts or comments on anything you just kind of walked through, or yeah, ways you could see that could be enhanced or could help your agencies.
And for everyone viewing who doesn't have a screen, what questions do you have? What was the feature that got you the most excited? Like that's definitely something that I would love to see. So please chime in the comments. But Kevin, I'm curious. You are maybe give a little context to who you are and what
Yeah.
you're building. And I know you're really busy and you're building something pretty incredible, but you are a solopreneur doing everything right now. Just help us understand where you're at.
Yeah, thank you. Let me back up and say hi, I'm Kevin. I am running a creative consultancy. So I run a company called Kevin Rapp Consulting. It's very creatively named. You can tell I'm a creative just through that. And I've been working with a bunch of tech companies to help them generate content that actually moves the business forward. So my experience has come from a lot of production and then moving into the in-house teams to understand how to take executional skill sets and apply them to a more strategic business and helping that business grow exponentially within the 4 years I was there. And so the work that I'm doing now is helping companies understand the digital landscape and how you need to market right now, because most companies are like, "Hey, we can just make an explainer video like it's 2007 and that can be our marketing objectives." But channels are so diverse right now, the marketing landscape is so much more complicated than it was even 10 years ago, that I offer companies a lot of opportunity for strategies that are working for tech industries right now. And I work with a lot of independent contractors that handle the execution of those strategies. So, Nicole, you're hitting on my biggest problem right now, which is I'm very busy. I'm inundated with a lot of work. And as the person that is doing all of the selling, doing all of the marketing, doing all of the strategy, the project management, and the creative direction, that's a lot of hats to wear. And what I would love to be able to do is to implement systems and processes to make all of those things more efficient so that I can focus my attention on the core skill set of what I do and not do as much of all of the other operational sides of the business that are just necessary when you're a solopreneur. And I think a lot of people that are in that wheelhouse of being a solopreneur and having to do everything, I think that's a pretty common and universal problem. And that's what really attracts me about Jauntboards is finding ways to systemize when a client is like, "Hey, I need an explainer video." Like, here's how I do that process. Here is the way that I approach it. Here's some examples. I have some decks and things that show that, but having something that's much more systemized, having something that like I could just be like, "Boom, here's the link. Here's how it's done." There's something that's really, really attractive about that for me.
And what would need to change to be able to get you to find time to be able to build this out? Like, do you feel like your current tech stack is allowing you to do it? So
Oh God, no.
technology
Oh
problem, is it
no.
a time problem? would it be helpful if there was a service from us that did this for you? Like, what would actually help you? Yeah,
That's
get there.
such a great question, because it is a time problem. It is. I am the bottleneck of every process within the business right now. Like, my ability to execute the work is entirely based on my capacity. And right now my capacity is like full. And so the challenge for me right now is like, I would love to do this because I see how it's going to impact the business, but like, okay, well then I'm going to need to turn down some work in order to give myself the time in order to do those things. So that's where my struggles are, and why I've been like owing James an email for 2 months, because I'm so focused on getting the work done, because like I've set up an engine in terms of marketing that like I have a good problem to have, which is that clients keep coming to me and have repeat requests. And I've expanded from project-based work to more retainers and things like that. Great problems to have. But there's still problems when I want to streamline the effectiveness of the business, because my focus gets to the day-to-day work instead of being more strategic about how I can improve the way I do the day-to-day work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I was in that same situation about like 4.5 years ago, and you're kind of like you're kicking the ball, like you're just delaying the problem, because once you
Yep.
cross that threshold and you're like, okay, I am going to hire my first project manager or my first
Yep.
sales, whatever, right? Or
Yep.
group a team to help. Then they go, Kevin, where's all the stuff we've done before, right? You've got these like major accounts. What all have we been doing? And it's like, oh gosh, okay, they're in these Google Drive folders, but they're here. So it's just like, right,
Yep.
it's inevitable. Like it has to
It
happen
is.
at some point if you're trying to build an agency beyond, maybe just a couple $100,000.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that threshold of like this. I recognize the problem. I'm problem aware. That's great.
Yeah.
Good for me. Problem aware. But the ability to be able to affect that change is just something that I have to like get over that hump. And I think you say like having that set up for you, having somebody that can maybe consult and sit and walk down with me and just say, like, I see so many different ways in which the tool can be used, but my business is so weird. And I think every person who's a solopreneur will say that same thing too. It's like, my business is weird. I don't know anything about how to systemize and operationalize a lot of the things that I'm doing. I'm doing things the way that I know how, which is like, I have this expertise in this one thing that I do really well. And I figured out my weird way of how to sell that thing my way. Now, how do I put actual scaffolding and systems around that thing that are in all of the areas that I was never really trained on how to do well, like finance, like building proposals, like contracts, all that stuff is the stuff that I've had to learn and had to figure out. And I probably figured it out the wrong way because I went to art school and I don't know business. I'm figuring all this out as I go, man. I don't know. So
Preach.
all of those operationals is like a, oh,
Mhm.
I don't know how to, like, I don't know how to do it yet.
Well, that's so interesting, right? Because we're not just talking about the structure in the system. We're talking about, is there someone out there that I could trust who would look at my stuff and be like, Kevin, you're undercharging, or
Yes.
Kevin, like you don't have a master services agreement with this kind of client, right?
Yep.
Like that's valuable. Okay, that's interesting. Yep. Great. We've talked to some agencies too who have done so much work historically when they saw the case study feature. They were
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, how can we retroactively get all this work we've done into this case study feature, because we know we need them. We've been delaying them. The ones we've
Yep.
done suck.
Yep.
Yeah, we could work towards generating them in the future, but what do I do with all these in the past?" It's the same kind of issue we're saying, which is like, I want to figure this out, and I don't have the time to go back and convert these in onto the platform. So I think they're, similar services there.
One of the thing that really attracts me about the case studies is the access to the data that you normally wouldn't get access to. Like, you can beg clients all you want to get you the information. Like, retroactively and after the fact, but that's hard to get a lot of the time. It's like, oh yeah, the video played. Like, okay, I'm glad that it didn't like Mission Impossible self-destruct, but like, did it actually like deliver results for the business? That's the information that I would really love to know so that I can build these types of case studies. So Fletcher, when you were talking about that side of things, that's something that I was like, ooh, there's a lot of value there.
Cool.
Yeah, some really interesting API integrations to be able to pull in that data for you to track a specific asset, see how it's performing. That's at least some of the more public metrics. That's interesting. What about, I'd love to explore the appetite for a potential process marketplace. So Kevin, curious to hear thoughts you'd have on that, as well as anyone in the comments, please chime in. But Fletcher, you want to kind of paint a picture as to where we're headed with that?
Yeah, definitely. So, Kevin, you said it so well. Like, I do this magical thing, and I need to build scaffolding around it. I think as everyone like kind of moves from that point to like, okay, this is, let me at least describe it well, even if it's magic. I'll describe how the trick is done, and then suddenly you have something that's a little more like, I guess, I don't know, portable and like easily to like actually like showcase and get other people to connect to. So as you build out these processes, we're really excited about, you can obviously share them yourself, right? You can do a post or whatever and be like, hey, here's my Jauntboards, here's my offerings. But a way to kind of just have a marketplace where you can publish those on there and you can be found through Jauntboards marketplace and actually see other people who do logo design and kind of compare them apples to apples, which is also really nice. So right now, if you were to compare, let's say, your logo design to Josiah's logo design, it would have to be like, how would you even do that? You look at like maybe you presented a deck and Josiah presented like some document. So like you have two different things that you're comparing, and then they talk about them different and they're in different orders and stuff like that. So what I like about Jauntboards is it helps kind of bring a consistency to the way we talk about what we do. And so that people can actually see and compare them, but not only compare them, but begin to like merge them into your own process and be like, okay, I love that they do this phase. I'd love to bring that in as well. And yes, you could do that and you can kind of create it in your own Jauntboards, but we think the marketplace will let you be discoverable so other people can buy your services from you. But what we're really excited about is that it'll help you building teams and actually merge your agency with a new freelancer that comes in. And you'll be able to do that so much easier because if they put together what their process is in a Jauntboard and you have yours, you'll be able to literally drag them into your bigger projects or whatever, and they maintain control over that part. So where Nicole calls it, the Power Ranger step, where they all like kind of morph and then turn into whatever that giant thing is.
It's a Megazord. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's also like the Captain Planet model. They all kind of do the same thing.
Yep,
but
totally.
It's like you plus me plus this person. Now we can be a team going after a larger project that we couldn't have done on our own, either as an individual or as an agency that has more niche. So we're talking about being able to pair up design and dev shops, which is already happening, but all into one project for the benefit of the client, But I mean, Kevin, I'm curious, like, I'm watching people follow you on LinkedIn, and you've built this amazing brand around like, stop making one video, build a system so you can end up with 100, right? And people are like, oh, this guy knows process, he knows systems. For you you're not going to be able to convert everyone who's watching you into a client, but they might be interested in buying your process and learning from you how to do it so they can do it and at least attempt to do it internally. Does that feel like that opens up multiple revenue streams for you?
100%. And that's something I've been thinking about, right? Because there's one thing to have someone buying your skills and your abilities. It's another thing to have people buying your ideas. It's another thing to have people buying the thing that makes you unique, because you only have so much capacity for the skills that you offer. And so when you're able to sell your ideas and you're able to sell the processes and the things that you have seen work and the structures that you know how to build and know are repeatable for others, that's when you have a lot of opportunity for ongoing recurring revenue. And that's something that's on my mind a lot, because I've seen a lot of people be like, I love this idea. How do you do it? How do you do it? How can I implement it into my process? How can I, as a motion designer, think about building content in a more systemized way? And so the ability to sell that as a service, or less of a service and more as a productized system, that is something that's really appealing to me.
Yeah, and to have you there at the bottom where it's like, are you getting stuck? Either you don't have the capacity to pull this off, or you have a question.
Yep.
Turn it into a proposal to hire you because they thought they could do it and they can't, or they just have to pick your brain for a minute, and then you get that early revenue. It really opens up a new flexible way of working, which is pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, because I think as creatives, we get hung up on the idea of the work being the thing that is be all end all, but when really it's like the process or the experience. Those are the things that really attract clients and maintain them and retain them. The things that you have to offer that are beyond just the quality of the work are really the things that set you apart. When we really think about like, oh, it's my style, it's my capabilities, but really those things are interchangeable. A lot of people are very good at what they do. A lot of people do great creative work. Only you have this unique way of working that solves their problems in the way that delivers them value. And the more that you can show that off, and I think Jauntboards is a really, really, really great tool to do that, the more value that you can deliver for your clients and the more revenue opportunities that you have.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. We're at time, so I want to acknowledge that. Obviously, if anyone needs to bounce, please feel free to peace out. Fletcher, any final questions or words for the team before we go?
I would just say, we Nicole and I had a conversation. We're if time is the thing that's keeping you from getting on Jauntboards, we would love to take that on. Like, we would love to offer a service where we can go in, you can give us the last, obviously we'll sign NDAs and all that stuff, but you can give us the last 30 SOWs you've had or the last year of work, and we will do all the heavy lifting. We can convert it and get your agency up on Jauntboards, so that you can hit the ground running. Sometimes it's nice just to have outside eyes to like go through and actually say, oh, this is unique, right? Like we've been a part of agencies, I've been a part of 7 agencies. So I can actually go through and be like, oh, this is really cool how you do this. And we can capitalize and maybe even overexpose the places that you do something where other people don't. So it can also be helpful in that regard. So definitely don't let time be, be the thing that's keeping you from do this. Reach out to us, and we're happy to put together something that unlocks you.
Amazing. All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Good Thanksgiving next week. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.